Hey guys, let's get more news about Dallas, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Cowboys predicted to cut ties with $40 million playmaker in offseason. Over the last decade or so, Cowboys receiver Brandon Cooks has established himself as a consistent threat wherever he's been. He never quite cracked the realm of elite NFL receivers, but in 5 stops around the league, he racked up 6 1,000-yard seasons in 11 years in the league. He spent the last 2 with the Cowboys, who acquired him in a trade for a 5th-round pick in 2023 and a 6th-rounder in 2024, and proved to be well worth that piddling price. Cooks had signed a 2-year, $40 million extension the previous season, and the Texans mostly wanted him off their books. He proved to be a solid counterpoint to CeeDee Lamb in 2023, catching 54 passes for 657 yards and 8 touchdowns. But in 2024, Cooks struggled with a knee injury, and caught just 26 passes for 259 yards. Now, he's hitting free agency, and with the Cowboys looking to rebuild their receiving room going forward, Cooks is likely to land elsewhere. In fact, at the Cowboys site, Blogging the Boys, the consensus is that Cooks will not only leave, but will join the hated rival Commanders and former Dallas defensive coordinator Dan Quinn on a projected 2-year, $18 million contract. Cooks is 32, and with the Cowboys likely to find a playmaker in the draft, there just is no room for him in Dallas. Writes BTB, the Cowboys have so many holes to fill on their roster, they'll likely need to go younger and cheaper at the receiver position. The biggest thing Dallas' current roster lacks at the receiver position is speed, and at this point of his career, Cooks has lost a step. With CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Tolbert, Jonathan Mingo, and Jalen Brooks all under contract next season, it seems likely the Cowboys will spend a high draft pick on a young receiver and let the veteran Cooks walk in free agency. The trade for Brandon Cooks was still one of Dallas' best offseason moves of the last decade, but it seems likely his time in Dallas has come to an end. The Cowboys could not only look to the draft for an answer at receiver, they could look to the first round. It's unlikely that projected top WR Teteroa McMillan from Arizona would be available when Dallas picks number 12, but the Cowboys would be in range for a player like Luther Burden from Missouri or Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. If not one of those 3, the Cowboys could well wait until the 2nd round to take a receiver. It's also possible that Dallas could address the spot in free agency, but the class of players available is not very enticing and the Cowboys don't want to spend. Additionally, despite speculation they could get in on a trade for disgruntled Dolphins star Tyreek Hill, that is a long shot. Cowboys' Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy have been in discussion the last 2 days on head coach position. Much has been made on sports talk shows and among other NFL pundits about the supposed mess that is the Dallas Cowboys' handling of the Mike McCarthy head coach question. There is plenty of talk about Dallas mistreating Mike McCarthy by not making a decision, denying permission for the Chicago Bears to speak to him, and any other thing you can think of. The only problem with all that is it doesn't seem that Mike McCarthy feels that way. McCarthy is a longtime veteran coach with skins on the wall, and has options among other teams. If he felt that Jerry Jones and the Cowboys were mistreating him or making a mess of the situation, he has every opportunity to speak about it, or to change the narrative himself. But he hasn't. That's because the most logical scenario here is that he wants to coach the Cowboys, Jerry Jones wants him to coach the Cowboys, and they are just negotiating what that looks like. Things like the length of the contract, the salary, how much power and influence McCarthy has over certain football areas, all of that needs to be worked out because in essence this is the Cowboys hiring a new coach. Sure, they know McCarthy and McCarthy knows them, but he may be asking for more influence here and there, or it might be about the length of the contract, or any number of things we are not privy to on the outside. It appears that all of this is happening over the last few days, per a report from Jeremy Fowler at ESPN. Cowboys coach McCarthy and owner Jerry Jones spent significant time Tuesday and Wednesday discussing the future, whether it's a new contract in Dallas or McCarthy potentially coaching elsewhere in 2025. People I've talked to in Dallas believe McCarthy is more likely to stay in Dallas than leave, but both sides need to be sure, and they have less than a week to figure it out. McCarthy has leverage and options. And as several coaches have told me this week, why wouldn't teams want to speak to a Super Bowl winner in what's considered a weaker candidate pool? The problem with the whole "Jerry is making a mess of it" scenario is that it assumes McCarthy has no leverage and is just a puppet in all of this. It is more likely that McCarthy is asserting his interest in what he wants as the coach going forward, and Jerry is negotiating that with him. It is also unfair to suggest that the Cowboys could have done this at any point during the season. That's just not generally how it works. During the season, coaches are focused on one thing: winning football games. Ownership might not even make up its mind until near the end of the season if there is even a chance that the coach comes back. Plus, McCarthy can now see that he has interest from other teams and can now use that as leverage in negotiating a new deal. Suggesting that all of this is in Jerry Jones' hands and that he is making a mockery of this severely underestimates McCarthy's role in all of this. The most likely scenario that is happening is that McCarthy wants to come back, Jerry Jones wants him to come back, they are just haggling over the terms of what that looks like. Obviously, it could all fall apart and animosity could break out among the two, so the end result could end up being messy. But if they can find their middle ground, they will have this all sewn up by early next week. New York Jets may have just revealed Mike McCarthy's fate with the Cowboys. It is only the third day of the Dallas Cowboys offseason and gray hairs have already started blooming. If the Mike McCarthy saga is any indication for how this offseason will unfold, Cowboys fans might be driven to pure and unadulterated apathy by July. If not for the Chicago Bears, who put in a request to speak with McCarthy about their head coach vacancy, we might still be in the dark regarding McCarthy's future. It took Jerry Jones some 24 hours to get back to the NFC North bottom feeders. After previously giving McCarthy jurisdiction to speak with any team, Jones denied the Bears' request. Everyone now thinks McCarthy will be back, though that certainly isn't official, by just denying Chicago permission. It could be a crude way of keeping McCarthy on ice for another week. Anything and everything is possible with this front office, but it stands to reason that both sides are trying to negotiate a new contract. If you're in denial about McCarthy's potential return, the New York Jets may have revealed the 61-year-old's fate with Dallas. The Jets have assembled a monstrous list of head coach candidates. If you think of someone, odds are New York has requested an interview. Despite that, they have not requested to speak with McCarthy, per Diana Russini of The Athletic. Your initial reaction might be to slander McCarthy. The Jets' interview list could populate a small island. It must sting for them to tell McCarthy they're not interested, right? Well, McCarthy would actually be a great hire for New York. His ability to work with an intrusive owner like Jerry Jones means he could succeed next to Jets owner Woody Johnson, who can't help but inject himself into prominent football decisions. Sound familiar? The Jets also have a talented roster. They need an experienced coach who knows how to cultivate a winning culture. While McCarthy's playoff record is spotty, he is the definition of a floor-raising coach. He might be the best fit for the Jets of the names that have been reported. New York would be crazy not to interview McCarthy. Saints interim coach Darren Rizzi, whose only head coaching experience is at the Division II level, is getting an interview. Rex Ryan, who hasn't coached in the NFL in 9 years, interviewed on Tuesday. The Jets have not made the playoffs in 14 years. McCarthy has a Super Bowl and made the playoffs in 12 of 18 seasons as a head coach. If that team, who is interviewing literally everyone, isn't interviewing McCarthy, they probably know he isn't going anywhere. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Mike McCarthy? Leave your opinion in the comments.